Well, hi folks, I just wanted to give you an update on the flooding situation. It's been a few days since I reported. As you can see, this is what the creek looks like now. It's now Sunday evening. The last of the heavy rain we had was Wednesday evening. And still this creek is flowing well above what it should be for this time of year. At this time of year it should be almost dry, if not dry. But yet it's been several days since we had the last rain. And you can see there's still a ton of water that's coming down this creek. And if you look up, you can see why, because there in the distance is the mountain. So a lot of the water comes flowing off of that mountain. This has been coming down for days since the rain has stopped. Another thing I wanted to point out too, these rocks that you see there in the middle of the creek, those weren't there before the flooding started. The power of the water with the flash flooding that we had brought these rocks down from further up in the creek somewhere. I don't know how far they traveled, but that one in the middle right there, that's got to weigh at least, I'm going to say 200 pounds anyhow. And some of these other larger rocks are dozens of pounds in weight, and yes, the force of the water pushed them all the way down. What I'll have to do eventually is get into the creek as it goes down and push the rocks over onto the bank, reinforce the bank with them. But we see this every time we have a lot of heavy rains, fast moving water that always pushes rocks down through. So, but as I said, you know, it's been a number of days since the last of the rain fell, and yet we're still dealing with the water runoff. I'll just take you here and show you the rest of this. As I said, we avoided any kind of flooding in the house, but since the last time that I reported about this flooding, we did have more rain that fell. In fact, my rain gauge that I have, I emptied 6 inches out of it 3 times, 7 inches out of it once, and then another 2 inches. So that means in the course of 3 days, from Sunday night until early Monday morning until Wednesday night, we had 27 inches of rainfall here. That's the most I can ever remember. That certainly wasn't connected to a hurricane. But and as you can see, this bridge is still in rough shape, but the water is flowing underneath it, and it is drivable. It's still solid enough that you can get vehicles over it. As I said, it does need to be replaced. I'll have to put the stone back on. But it did survive, even though the water came over this 3 times. In fact, the picture that this video has, like the introductory picture for the video, was a picture I took that last time, the 3rd time that the water came over. That was Wednesday evening. I guess it was around this time of the evening. So it was not the worst of the 3. The first one was the worst of the 3. Before I did the last video, the water was highest. That's when all these logs washed into the yard. That's when this entire yard here was underwater, and this whole area was inundated. When I was walking across this bridge with my boots on, the water was at least a foot deep, and it was fast moving. I was not sure what was underneath it, but the bridge held. An interesting thing there, if you look, this almost looks like some kind of a log in here, but what it really is, that is the entire root structure of all that tea, the peppermint tea that's growing here. The force of the water just kind of peeled that back, almost like a layer of an orange or something, and rolled over itself. Just before this flooding, almost this entire creek bank through here, or creek bed through here, I should say, was covered with this tea, and the force of the water just peeled it right back. Now I'm hoping it'll come back, because I'd still like to get fresh mint tea like I talked about in one previous video. But it doesn't want to focus right here. What's going on? There we go. But it did suffer some damage. As far as my gardens go, I won't walk you up all the way to them, but I've noticed that now my Some of my tomato plants are starting to wilt. I'm guessing that's because the roots have just been soaked for so long that it's just too much water. Also, some of the green beans, they've turned brown, so the amount of water we had basically has killed them. I still have to start picking the ones that are there, but I'm going to lose some of the crop because of it. I don't know about the tomato plants yet, if they'll recover as things dry out. We've had a couple nice sunny days since, and the ground was dry enough here. As you can see, I managed to get grass mowed yesterday and the day before. It wasn't too soft to do that. The fields were still too wet. As I walked through them, there were still puddles in the grass, so I couldn't do any mowing in the fields around the gardens or in the meadow. I'm hoping that maybe by tomorrow I can get in there to do that. Because this mega storm hit, or this mega trough of tropical moisture, whatever you want to call it, hit during the summer, the ground was naturally drier than it would be, say, in the spring or the winter. And so it did absorb a lot of the water. I'm surprised how much it absorbed. The other thing, too, is with the heavy downpours, a lot of it ran right off. It didn't soak in. If the rain had been, say, over a longer period of time and less intense, probably the ground would have gotten far more saturated than it did. But as I said, that's life in the country. You deal with what nature gives you, and so we dodged a real potentially damaging bullet with all the rain that we had. Many people in our area weren't so lucky. Many people had some significant damage, lost property, etc. But we managed to get through it. Like I said, there was no real water in the house. There was no real water in the barn. And aside from it taking the stone off the top of this bridge, maybe making it a little more dilapidated than it was, we really didn't have too much damage from it. So aside from what we'll have in the gardens. But I just wanted to give you an update on that, show you just how much water is still flowing. I know you can't understand that because of not living here, but usually by this time, if there's any water at all in this creek, it's underneath this bridge, and there's this little green algae scummed surfaced mud puddle underneath the bridge, and all the rest is dry. But as you can see right here, the water here is probably a good 2.5 feet deep still. And this is going to flow like this for a number of days till all the rest of the water continues to drain off the land. So just wanted to give you an update on that, and I thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel.